How do words and phrases show relationships between ideas? In this lesson, you will learn how to create cohesion and show relationships between ideas by using appropriate and varied transitions. We are writing in response to a prompt about a passage from Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave. Frederick Douglass had the opportunity to interact with many people. Examine the text closely. How was Frederick's life impacted by these other characters? Write an informative essay to convey your ideas about this question. Let's review the writing process. When responding to an essay prompt about literature, the first step is to read closely and analyze the text. Step 2 is to generate ideas and create a preliminary plan for the writing assignment. Step 3 involves drafting the essay and revising to prepare your work for Step 4, where you edit for conventions and publish. In this lesson, we will be working on Step 3, specifically revising one of the body paragraphs of the essay. Here are some very important points about transitions. Transitions can be single words or phrases. There are many types of transitions used for various purposes. Transitions tell the reader how to think because they signal types of relationships between ideas. I like to think of transitions as the glue that holds all the writer's ideas together so that the reader ends up with a clear and concise way to understand the writing. Transitions are thinking signals. They give us clues about how to organize the ideas in the writing. Some transitions tell us about time, when something is occurring. Another type of transition signals that two or more things are being compared. They are similar in some way. A third type signals that two or more things are contrasted or different in some way. Other transitional words or phrases help us understand cause-effect relationships, situations where one thing happens and another follows as a result of the first. And still another type of transitional word or phrase signals the reader of the end or conclusion for something. There are three steps in our lessons today. Step 1, reread the paragraph. Make note of places where ideas and sentences do not flow together logically. Step 2, ask yourself, what transitional words or phrases can I use to show how ideas and sentences are related? Jot down your ideas. And step 3, revise the sentences in the paragraph. Reread and evaluate the effectiveness of the new transitions. Let's start with step 1. Reread the paragraph. Make note of places where ideas and sentences do not flow together logically. When I reread my paragraph, I realized first of all that I only had 3 sentences. I also figured out that step 2 didn't flow together very well. I actually had several different ideas in this sentence. So I started to think I could help my reader by revising and presenting these ideas more logically in separate sentences using appropriate transitions. So this is the portion that I need to look at more closely and revise. Now that I have figured out which part I need to work with, I can move to step 2. Ask yourself, what transitional words or phrases can I use to show how ideas and sentences are related? Jot down your ideas. So when I looked at this, I started to think, certain words or phrases clarify when something occurs. The first idea I have for revising is to help my reader understand that several things happened to Frederick Douglass when he was about the age of 12. So I'm going to jot that down. I also know that transitions can help a reader understand how things are the same and different. This is why I'm thinking of that with this second sentence. Some of the characters I'm writing about were people Frederick met face to face, like Mistress Hugh, the little white boys, and the Irishman. On the other hand, he read about the runaway slave, his master, and Sheridan in a book. When I revise, I want to choose words and phrases that contrast these two different ways Frederick encountered characters. Now that I have my ideas for revision jotted down, I'm ready to move on to step 3. Revise the sentences in the paragraph. Reread and evaluate the effectiveness of the new transitions. I'm going to revise this portion of the second sentence that's marked out. My goal is to write a new sentence that starts with a transitional phrase which explains when all of this happened to Frederick. Here's my new second sentence. When Frederick was 12 years old, he was deeply affected by certain people with whom he interacted. I've accomplished my first goal. The transitional phrase I chose lets my reader know when the things I'm writing about happened. My next task will be to revise this portion about the characters Frederick met. I have two groups of characters to mention. Frederick met some of them face to face. I will signal my reader about this group first. Here's my sentence. Some of these interactions were personal, face-to-face encounters, such as those he had with Mistress Hugh, little white boys he befriended on the streets, and a couple of Irishmen he met on a wharf. I have given the reader a signal that there is a similarity between Frederick's relationships with all the people mentioned in this sentence. He met them all face to face. Now I need to use a transition that will let the reader know how this next group of characters is different from the first group. I will use two sentences to accomplish this task. In the first sentence, I will use a transition to signal the reader that I'm talking about a different or contrasting set of characters. Then I will use a transitional phrase in the second sentence to signal a cause-effect relationship to show how one thing caused a second thing. Other interactions with characters Frederick met vicariously Other interactions were with characters Frederick met vicariously through reading a book entitled The Columbian Orator. By reading this book, he experienced the realities of one runaway slave, his master, and another man referred to as Sheridan. The first transitional phrase signals the reader that I'm now referring to characters from the book Frederick read. The second transitional phrase signals a cause-effect relationship. Reading the book caused Frederick to experience and understand the perspectives of the characters in the book. I now realize that I can make my point even stronger by revising my last sentence too. I want my reader to understand that even though Frederick experienced two different kinds of interactions with characters, both interactions had a similar effect. I will use another transitional phrase to signal the reader about how to think. Whether face-to-face or vicarious, encounters with these characters all had a significant impact on the life of this young African American slave boy. Notice that I first acknowledged the differences in the interactions, then made a strong statement about how both types of interaction produced a similar outcome. Here is my revised paragraph. It now has 6 sentences instead of 3. It flows much more smoothly and it communicates ideas clearly and logically for the reader. I am thinking that I've learned something very important. Appropriate and varied transitions signal relationships between ideas and help the reader know how to think about what he or she is reading. I will use this same process to revise all the paragraphs in my essay. Let's review the steps in our lesson. Step 1, reread the paragraph. Make note of places where ideas and sentences do not flow together logically. Step 2, ask yourself, what transitional words or phrases can I use to show how ideas and sentences are related? Jot down your ideas. And step 3, revise the sentences in the paragraph. Reread and evaluate the effectiveness of the new transitions. In this lesson, you have learned how to create cohesion and show relationships between ideas by using appropriate and varied transitions.